Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer. This is their part number 7801-601. This is a horizontal spring pivot. This is a classic, typical, ubiquitous design on double-acting doors, primarily in residential applications. I really can't think of commercial applications where I've seen these. Generally, with a real high volume use, you're going to have hardware that's simply going to be more robust. However, this sort of material that I'm pulling out of the box here, I've seen these successfully installed for decades, literally decades, decades-long installations. This is covered in oil. Okay. That's the business end of a 7801. And the 7800 is the series of double-acting pivots available from this manufacturer. Let's take a closer look at it. Before we get into the particular of what the 7801 is and what 601 means in the part number, let's go over the 7800 series. So the 7800 series is basically a series that is comprised of a light-duty spring, like the 7801, meaning it's rated for doors that are about 35 pounds. The 7811, which is rated for doors about 90 pounds, or the 7811, 12, 13, 14. And then there's the 7813 and 7814 HD models. Forgive me, the 7811, 12, 13, 14, those are rated for 90 pounds. I don't remember saying that. Then there's the 7813 HD, the 7814 HD. Those are rated for 135 pounds. By far the most common is the 7811 because that is a 90-pound range. That's what you're going to bump into in residential applications. My great-grandparents built their home in what would be the northwest side of Chicago. Well, the west side of Chicago. In 1944 or thereabouts, Bommer double-acting pivot went in. When I was going there in the late 80s, worked just like the day it was put in. Absolutely. So these things have been around. The Bommer has been making them. Bommer has made them for other manufacturers, I am quite sure. The item has been cloned. It has been evolved. There is archival catalogs that we have in the site showing this designed by other manufacturers, McKinney, Stanley, very possibly Yale, Corbin, and others. But the name Bommer is what most people think of when it comes to a double-acting spring door closing mechanism, whether it be a bottom pivot like this or it be double-acting springs, really. So when talking about the 7800 series, when someone calls and says, yeah, I need one of those Bommer double-acting spring pivots. Okay, you mean the one that mounts at the floor and you cut the funny notch out at the bottom of the door. Yeah, that's the one. Has the kind of tiny little top pivot at the top. Yep, that's it. My first question always is, how heavy is the door? Okay, so 35, 90, 135 pound range. Usually that's going to be a 7811 range. But in this case, it's a 7801. The next question I'm always going to ask is, hold open or non-hold open? Okay, so in the 7801 or 02, those models are specifically hold open. Okay, they do not come non-hold open. So the first question will be, if they say that it's non-hold open, I'll say, well, the problem is you've got a really light door. They only make them hold open. Is that okay? It usually is. Just testing to see how that holds open. And it's awfully difficult to do it by hand. I'm probably making a face. Yeah, I mean, it's evidenced by this bird's mouth. I've got that twisted. If this was a 90-pound, that would never happen. I've got, you've got this bird's mouth preparation, like the yolk of it. I'm going to keep our finger well away from that. You can see how it holds open there. I'm thinking to myself, how might I... I don't see any realistic way to modify that. I suppose if you were to change the shape of that bird's mouth preparation at the tip of my finger, but I've never had anyone ever ask for a modification of this. Okay. So, hold open only. Now, if this was a 90-pound door, we'd have more questions to ask, because at that point, well, actually we have one more. The 7801 is hold open. The difference between that and its sister product, the 7802, is that the 02 will come with a jamb bracket. The jamb bracket is literally nothing other than an L-shaped piece of metal that the base plate will mount to, and then the L-shaped angle will then mount to the jamb. Okay. Why would you want a jamb bracket? Lots of people ask that question. And it's not obvious, but here's why. There are environments where you cannot drill into the floor. A hospital is an environment that they don't want any holes going into the floors. So if you have fire-rated doors, there are no flush bolts going into the floor in a hospital. They'll use a fire bolt. Probably not going to see this in a hospital, although I suppose you could. The other reason is that the owner is quarterbacking the procurement of the material for the carpenter. Carpenter says, you will go out and buy it and I'll put it in. Okay. Carpenter is a carpenter. He doesn't have any bits with carbide on him, so he can't drill into the tile floor or the marble floor or the terrazzo floor. But he will go to the wood, so that'd be another reason. You might have an application where you have radiant heat in the floor, and to pierce into that is really a bad idea, because you might you might create a short in the distribution of the wires that give that radiant floor its situation. So you'd only want a jamb bracket when you won't or cannot drill into the floor. Otherwise, you're going to just screw it to the floor. That's how 99 out of 100, I think, are installed. Now, if this was a model that was the 90-pound range, we've got more questions to ask. It will be, what's the weight of the door? It will be hold open or non-hold open. It will be with jamb bracket or without jamb bracket. Then there's a 7821 and a 7822. That will allow me to say, do you want your faceplates made of steel, a steel-based material, or a brass-based material? The difference is, if you're going to order it prime coat, you're going to order that steel. If you're going to order it bright black japanned like this one, the 601, you're just going to order that steel because it's a plated process. But if you were doing satin chrome, or more specifically polished brass, or your satin bronze or oil rub bronze, now the difference between steel and brass base material on satin chrome, especially polished brass, satin brass, oil rubbed, satin bronze, you're going to get a far more beautiful finish when you're dealing with an architectural base material like brass. Okay, so that's really why you're going to want to spend the extra money, because those plates are going to match perfectly, not perfectly, but they're going to match other solid brass hardware within the space, because those plates are too made of solid brass. So that would be the final question on that. Hold open, non-hold open, with or without jamb bracket, base material of the faceplates. When you get into the 7813 HD and the 7814 HD for the 150-pound range, you're only dealing with, they are non-hold open exclusively, with or without jamb bracket. That's the only option that you're going to get on that. Okay. Let's take a look at the extended description real quick. Now, the extended description talks about the fact that it's malleable iron and steel mechanism with a steel trim. This does indicate the 7801 is with the floor plate, not the jamb bracket. anti-friction bearing, that's going to be a reference to the construction inside of there. You know, we don't need to, you know, most of us don't need to take it to that level of knowing that. It is indeed double acting. It will swing 90 degree this way and negative 90 degree the other way. Hold open at approximately 85 degrees, and it's a non-adjustable spring tension. That is important also to know. Some mechanisms are adjustable and some are not. The 780102 is not adjustable. Your 7811 let's take a look. The with and without jam bracket, the steel or brass cover plates, those are all adjustable. 7811, 7812, 7813, 7814, hold open, non-hold open, 78, 21 and 22, which is just the brass. So those are adjustable. The 78, 13 and 14, that is, they're non-hold open, but they are adjustable spring tension on those. So if your door is clearly very light, you know, I wouldn't think of taking a 7811 and adjusting the spring down to the point where it will not make that door move hyperactive through the opening. I just don't think you'll have enough residual stored energy on the compressed spring to get the door to really behave well in the, you know, positive 15 and negative 15 degree. You know, maybe go with a heavier door. So door thickness, 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. Maximum door width is 3 foot wide, and maximum door weight is 35 pounds. At this point, we can look at the product catalog. Along with the template and installation instructions, there is a 2-page document called Product Brochure that I think would be very helpful for you to review. Studying it for just a few seconds will make you probably very comfortable navigating the differences between all of them. The bottom right-hand corner of page 2 talks about the 7890 top pivot assembly, and we've sold that to people who have used it in other unknown scenarios where they just need a top pivot. There's really no way to come up with using it as a top and bottom. It's just meant as a top pivot only. But it can be used in applications where you need to have some sort of pivot point at the top. And that's the 7890. Also, the 7805 shows what that jam bracket looks like. The 4 larger holes on the side are the countersunk holes for you to get the, I believe they must be countersunk, to get the bracket attached to the jam. And we're going to go over the installation instructions. That jam bracket is generally surface mounted. I would really like to see it mortised, but the compensation on the template for the thickness of that bracket to the jam will have to be considered naturally. So that's the product catalog that's there. Now let's look. Let's start with the link to the template. We're going to look at the template and the instructions, both of those documents. Let's get a look at the template and instructions. I'm going to open up both of those documents so that I can quickly compare how they're going to change or the difference between the two. Okay, so you really need both the template and the installation instructions. You could, you know, if they just modified the installation instructions slightly, you wouldn't need the template at all. The reasoning is on the template they give you the undercut of 9/16 of an inch. And everything else is basically on the installation instructions. So let's tackle the template because there's really not that much to it. It gives you an enormous amount of dimensional properties. Great. You can certainly review that. I'm not going to throw a tape measure on it. I don't see a reason to do so. That's the top third or so of the template itself. The bottom 2/3 simply talks about the preparation that needs to occur to the door at the top of the door does show the header. It shows an elevation perspective of what the header prep would need to look like as well. Shows what the preparation needs to look like at the bottom of the door. Specifically tells you that they want a 1/4 inch margin at the edge of the door between the pivot style and the jamb. Okay. Now, as we look at the template, before we draw our attention to the preparation in the bottom of the door, which is obviously just, for this. And I'll tell you now, as long as you make the prep in your door look like that picture, it's going to fit right. The first time I did it, I said, okay, well, just make these two look alike, and it fit perfectly. You could make that preparation however you like. I used a router, and then I squared the inside corners out. A router, in my opinion, is really the only way to prep hardware onto doors and frames. But what I'd like to call attention to is the 1/4 inch. They're showing that you've got a radius of 1.5 on the pivot style of the door. Now, you don't have to have a 1.5 radius, and in fact, you could leave it square edge, and the door will work on a 1/4 inch radius. And if you were to radius the door, you would absolutely change all of that to 1/8 of an inch, for sure. Getting smaller than that, you could make the door, if you had like 3/32 or maybe a 1/16, you could get the door probably mostly open before it was no longer going to work. 1/8 of an inch if you're going to radius it. Now, let's talk about radiusing. The question is, are you going to do it or not? If you're not going to, and you don't really care about a 1/4 inch this or that, then great. Then leave a 1/4 inch on the pivot style. I would suggest that you leave a 1/4 inch on the opposite style, just so that your door and elevation looked symmetrical. Okay, you only, you'll have 1/8 of an inch at the top. You'll have 9/16 at the bottom. Now, if you're going to radius the door, now you can make those dimensions 1/8 of an inch on both sides, guaranteed. The question is, will you radius the door? Or if you're ordering it from a manufacturer, have them radius the door. It will permit a tighter margin. The upside of radiusing it is exactly that. It's a tighter margin between the edge of the door and the frame, because a 1/4 inch is really a lot of daylight to come through a door. Maybe you'll notice it, maybe you won't. But from my perspective, a 1/4 inch would be far too much margin to have between the styles of the door. So it would be radiused. The downside of radiusing the door is, if you're doing it yourself, you may not have the tools to radius it, or you may have investigated it and found that a 3-inch diameter roundover bit is a couple $100. Or last time I bought one, it was a fortune. You might say, well, I could buy the tool, then what am I going to do? Well, the way I've done it is because I would be in a position of needing to radius doors like this, is I would have like a 1.5 router that I took the base and I carved out the base, cut a large hole in it so I could fit this big bit into. Then I would put my door down, clamp it. You don't want that door to move. Then I would take my router and I would place it up on the door, and I'd hit the switch, and I would make one pass down the door, making sure that my router base was making contact and not tipping. You tip and you're going to gouge the other side. You're going to gouge the style, and you're not going to be able to mitigate that. So your force needs to be down on the face of the door, and you're dealing with a bigger horsepower router. Mine was 1.5. I never tried it on like a 7/8 router. Oh, plus also the collet diameter is going to dictate the router size. It's a little bit heavier because you're moving a lot of material off at one time. As a rule, I would make one good pass. I would make one final pass. I would never go 3 times. Don't push when you get to the end of the work, or you're going to round over the bottom or top of the door. You want to enter the door. You don't want to back up at all, because then you're going to get into the possibility of actually rocking the router back and forth. Once you've got that done, take the door, flip it over, clamp it down. 2 passes. You're in real good shape. Take the door, flip it over, 2 passes, flip it over, 2 passes. You're done. The downside of radiusing a door depends on the construction of the door now. If you're dealing with a typical architectural wood door construction where it can be 5-ply or 7-ply, or, well, it won't be 9-ply if it's architectural, but it could be a 9-ply door. As you cut through the style of your door with your tool, just going to make a quick sketch here, imagining that we're doing a 7-ply door. You're going to take that, okay? You're going to make it look like this. The difference here is there is no discernible width between these layers. 3 plus 1 plus 3 is 7. That's a 7-ply door. That's going to be a veneer, a crossbanding, and a backer. A veneer, a backer, and a crossbanding. But when you turn it into a radius door, you substantially increase the visible... You therefore create, and I've only got 2 of them here. I'm exaggerating it, but you're going to see the areas at the tip of my pen. So if you're doing a cherry door and you have some crossbanding and some backer that is going to be a weird color, you're going to really accentuate that because of the way your knife is cutting the wood. I can tell you that that is 9 times out of 10 not going to pass muster. So if you're dealing with a laminate, if you're dealing with a door that is of basically plywood construction, 3-ply plywood, a core, 3 plies of plywood, you're going to want to think through how that's going to be radiused. If it's stile and rail construction, it's probably not going to matter. You're going to want to check your construction on the end to make sure that you don't blow through, you know, the core of the material. But that's inherently the problem with turning something into radiused. Okay, that's the downside. So be mindful of that, of what you're doing. If you're painting the door, who cares? Doesn't matter if you cut through that those layers to accentuate what those layers look like. Now, that's the decision you have to make, to radius or to not radius. Double acting doors, you generally definitely see them radiused. Now, in terms of the dimension down below, you would literally you need to make that dimension, those dimensions on the door. It's easy. I would recommend that you make a template so that you could literally take your router and your collet and just follow around a plunge style so that you can go through it multiple passes to get through your door. And I've had people tell me they've done it with a skill saw. Okay. How did that turn out? Oh, it was great. Okay. You must be a master with a skill saw. I know that I'm not. Obviously, you're going to have some work that you'll do with a chisel. But that's it. I can tell you from first-hand experience, you make the bottom of your door look like that stepped preparation, you're in good shape. Speaking of that, when you look on the template to the image on the right that shows the faceplate, whether or not you notice it, you are going to be missing the opportunity to have, and you're going to get 2 plates. This is the plate. What I don't like about the design is that you're going to be missing, you won't be able to utilize all the holes to secure it because you're literally going to be chopping out much of the door to get that installed. And the reason they don't have handed plates is because then they're going to need handed plates, left hand and right hand. All of the plates you get are going to be identical with the same 5 holes. So I would prefer if the plates were handed so that you had mounting holes where they needed to be and not any more or less, and empty holes. I've had people it's obviously very, not obviously, but it is uncommon for me to get a call from someone that says, hey, what am I doing with these 2 holes that I can't hit any wood? I'd say, yeah, that's the way they make those. Here's why. There are not handed plates. And some people have said, you know, I'm just going to cut the head off and I'm going to glue the screw in. And I say, yeah, I would do the same, quite frankly. I wouldn't want an open hole there. So you know, I would probably cut that. I would get some epoxy. There's a product called E6000. If you just search for that, it's a great multi-purpose adhesive. I'd dab a little underneath it. I would just put my holes there. I'd have a moist towel to wipe off immediately anything else, any of that squirts out, and let that sit overnight. Then you're going to have a couple of nice plates with holes already. It'll be someone else's problem in 50 years when they go to unthread those holes, those screws, to find out there's no screws there. And that exhausts the hard part of it. The template also talks about the pivot. Now, installing this, you know, if it was me, I would use a Forstner bit is what I would do. The diameter of this is 7/8 of an inch. I would like to have a Forstner bit, a 7/8 Forstner bit, and I would make 3 strategic holes. 1, 2, 3, to the thickness, or to the depth, 5/32 deep, as shown. And that would give me an ability to really cleanly make that preparation, especially in the header. You're really not going to see much of the head portion, but if you open the door to 90, yeah, you're going to see a little bit of that. There's no doubt. Or you can if you want to. So that's how I would prep for that. So the preparation is fairly easy. The other thing is the heel plate that you're going to get, the back plate, that's intent on you having a radius. And that's going to have to go on there. Certainly. The problem is, if you don't have a radius, you know, you're really you know, it's not going to be the end of the world to not have that radius, because the plate literally comes and covers much of that up. So it's going to look clean, so you're going to be able to make that installation. But the template does call out for radius, so be mindful of having to leave the reservation, so to speak. Now, if we look at the document called Installation Instructions, that does actually give you what you need for the installation instructions, except that, again, you need both documents. The question is how wide is my door going to be compared to the finished opening? How tall will my door be in relationship to the finished opening? Your height is easy. You'll have 1/8 of an inch at the header. You'll have 9/16 at the bottom. Now you've got 11/16. If it's an 80-inch tall opening, 80 minus 11/16, you'll have 79 and 5/16. Okay, that'll be your net door height. Your width, you know, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Go from there. How you're going to prep that. You might also have a door, and you might say, well, I can't change my door size for whatever reason. And then you're going to build an opening around it. Those same criteria in reverse would be how I would apply the logic to determine my net door size. Do I have a finished opening? Do I have a net door size? Something has to be changed to fit the other. Now, taking a look at the installation instructions, step 1, radius the door. Step 2, make the balance of the preparation for the top pivot. Step 3 is the bottom pivot preparation. Step 4 is to attach the bottom pivot to the bottom of the door. You're going to need to have your top pivot attached to your header and to the top of the door. And in step 5 is where you're going to take the unit and kind of sneak it in, tip it in place. At that point, you're going to mark your 4 holes for your installation. And the reason those holes are slotted like that is because, you know, that drill bit has a tendency to walk a little bit before it pierces into whatever you're drilling into. And I had a client actually earlier this week say, hey, it's askew. You know, it doesn't sit right in the center of the opening. What can I do? Is there any adjustment? No, there's no adjustment. But those holes are meant to allow you to take that and tip it. Not tip it, but put it askew ever so slightly. Okay? That's the point. I would get it put in place, mark my holes, pull it out, pre-drill, put it back in place, and then run the screws down into the bottom into the floor. Attach your cover plates, attach your back plate or your heel plate as I call it, and then attach your cover plates, and your installation is done at that point. Okay. Now the 7801 is available in lots of finishes. it's made of steel, so they can plate practically anything onto it. And no... okay, so a lot of finishes. Prime Coat, Bright Black Japan, which is this. This is what black looks like. Black is a very popular color nowadays in the world of architectural and residential hardware. Zinc, which would be a reflective chrome color. If you're looking for something shiny chrome, zinc would be good because it'll be less expensive than polished chrome, but not nearly as refined. A gold zinc dichromate. Zinc dichromate would be a goldish type color. If you want goldish type color and don't care about it being a actual polished brass, that would be good because it would be inexpensive. Polished brass, satin brass, antique brass, polished bronze, which would be beautiful, blackened bronze, satin bronze, oil rub bronze, blackened satin bronze. You get the point. Polished nickel, satin nickel, blackened nickel, polished chrome, satin chrome. Okay, lots of different colors. If you're going to paint it, just order Prime Coat. It's the least expensive. It's ready for paint is the bottom line. Replacement parts are also available, and in particular, we're talking about the replacement cover plates. I've had clients replace only the cover plates because yesterday someone ordered a set of cover plates because one was dented on one side. Over the years, as finishes change, polished brass used to be the rage. Now everyone wants black. It's going to go back to nickel someday, and then antique brass. So you can replace only the exposed portions of this, and all those plates are listed there as well. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. You're going to get screws to mount the base to the floor. You're going to get fasteners for everything else, all the concealed portions. You'll get screws for the faceplate and for your heel plate come as well. Any questions on the Bommer 7801 in a 601 finish or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.